So welcome everyone. I will start in English tonight. It's great to see you all. I think a lot of familiar faces, but better news, a lot of new faces, even from the UK. So I think that's very good news. We have a very cool program tonight. So I will share with you the next hour. So first of all, we will start with our party leader, Dilan Yeşilgöz, with I think, very a strong speech about the reason why we need to choose for radical growth. Then we have very special members here tonight, all the way from the UK, from Looking for Growth. So I think it's really cool to have you all here. Then we will go to the one and only Robert Gaal. Is an entrepreneur, startup, scale-ups, angel investor, and more. And he will tell you a bit more about how it is to entrepreneur as a startup entrepreneur in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, and the things we actually need to change and need to be the best ecosystem in the world. Then we will go to you all. Everyone has a chance to ask something. To Dilan, the guys from Looking for Growth, to Robert Gaal. You can ask me anything. I'm here at the bar at the end. So thank you all. The thing I would like to mention is that feel free to ask the questions in English or in Dutch. It's all up to you guys. I will tell you at the end a bit more about the things we're doing in The Hague at the moment in Dutch, because it's very technical. And then we will go to the bar, and I think that's the best part, of course, always. So I would like to ask Dilan, and give her a very warm applause, please.
Goedenavond allemaal, geweldig om jullie hier te zien. En met jullie permissie zou ik graag in het Engels verder willen, omdat we natuurlijk gasten hebben vanuit het Verenigd Koninkrijk. Welcome. I am truly glad to see you all here. And I already mentioned in Dutch, but please allow me to continue in English tonight, since we have very special guests from the UK with us. We are very excited that you have joined us for this important event, to stand with us, to inspire us, and to be part of a shared mission, which is the fight for growth. Because the reason we are here tonight, growth, couldn't be more important. It couldn't be more urgent. In my view, both in the Netherlands and across Europe, we are facing a clear choice. If we continue down the path we are on right now, that would be a choice. That is a choice. A choice to become even more dependent on the rest of the world, for our energy, for our technology, even for our security. It is a choice that allows countries like China and the United States to outpace us, to grow faster, and to become economically stronger. It is a choice that leads to decline. It is a choice that leads to weakness in an already unstable world. And that is not a choice I am willing to make. Because there's another path, a path of growth, of abundance, a choice for freedom, for prosperity, for a strong and safe country in an unsafe world. But that choice demands leadership. It demands courage. And, above all, it demands a bold, unwavering commitment to growth. And that is why we are here tonight. Because the voice of growth, the voice of abundance instead of redistribution, that needs to be louder. It must become more powerful, more compelling than the voices of redistribution or even of decline. That is what I want to speak to you about tonight. And that is why I'm so glad to welcome Lawrence and James, who have built an inspiring movement with Looking for Growth, and also entrepreneur Robert Gaal, who is doing outstanding work to strengthen the business climate here in the Netherlands. So again, please, let's give them a big applause. Thank you. So a lot is at stake. The world as we knew does not longer exist. Putin is waging a war in Europe. The Netherlands is increasingly targeted by cyber attacks. China is becoming more and more aggressive. Trump is threatening with tariffs. And then there's the AI revolution, racing towards us, a revolution that will change everything. The global deck is being reshuffled. And as I said, we are facing a choice between dependence, a world where developments overwhelm us and change happens to us, or a choice to stand strong, to show leadership, to take control ourselves, to be a mature Netherlands in a mature Europe, to understand that economic growth is essential to invest in our security, that independence begins with making the right decisions, and that we must act now to keep our country and our continent strong and stable in the years to come. And that is why the VVD recently presented a plan in which we radically choose economic growth. So let me be clear. Economic growth is progress. Everyone benefits, with more jobs and more opportunities, with the means to invest in safety, in healthcare, and in high-quality public services. So with this plan, the VVD is making a conscious and radical choice for growth. We choose to make the Netherlands a more attractive place to do business, to make work pay more than not working, and to do everything necessary to keep companies here and have them invest here. We give entrepreneurs the space they need to stop suffocating them with rules. And we make sure our great companies can once again put the Netherlands at the forefront of the world. A strong economy also needs strong foundational industries. They are, quite literally, the foundation of our prosperity. We will do what it takes to keep these companies and the jobs they provide here in our country. At the same time, we must look ahead. We must make sharp choices about future sectors and technologies. We must create the conditions that make the Netherlands a top destination for business and innovation. And our plan offers concrete proposals to do just that. But let's be honest, the VVD cannot do this alone. Too often in politics, we stand alone when it comes to growth and entrepreneurship. We are surrounded by parties that portray entrepreneurs as greedy polluters. They believe our country gets stronger through redistribution or even shrinkage, that fail to see how growth underpins stability and security. They don't understand that new forms of energy make us not just more sustainable, but also more independent, and therefore safer. So just look at nuclear energy. Because of years and years and years of debate, during which the VVD often stood alone, we now have less clean, affordable, and stable energy than we could have had. And we are more dependent on Russia and the US than we should be. Or look at the topic of Lelystad Airport. You wouldn't believe this one. An airport already built, funded with taxpayers' money, full of potential for entrepreneurs and workers. Yet it's gathering dust because too many are backing away. It is wasteful, and honestly, it is irresponsible. The consequences are felt at home, around the kitchen table. Even when we try to fix what should be a basic principle that work should pay more than not working. It is absurd that people who can work sometimes end up better off if they don't. That is not just unfair, it is wrong. Work is the way for people to get ahead, to grow themselves, and to help grow our economy. But again, the VVD often stands alone. And it doesn't stop there. We want to eliminate suffocating rules for businesses. We want to attract global talent. We want startups and scale-ups to get the financing they need. Too often, it's the VVD alone pulling the rope. Too often, it's too easy for other parties to make choices that harm the Dutch economy. And in a world like this, we simply cannot afford this anymore. If we don't act now to stimulate growth, if we don't give entrepreneurship the room it needs, it will hit all of us. In our prosperity, in our stability, in our security. So I say, we must build a louder and broader front. And I have no illusion that certain parties will suddenly come around. But we can make it impossible for them to ignore the issue. We can force them to explain why they are not choosing growth. And to all of us in politics and across the country, we must join forces. Not just as a party, but with everyone in the Netherlands who sees what's at stake. And we can learn from initiatives like Looking for Growth in the UK. We must do better here in the Netherlands, together with all of you here in this room tonight. And we must do better in Europe. Because as long as we treat each other as competitors within Europe, we will be played against one another. That's not too hard to predict. It's happening right now. It is time for Europe to recognize its power, to stop working against growth and progress, even done, with the best intentions. A great example of how things should be done in the EU's recent initiative to remove internal barriers within the single market. A smart strategy to strengthen Europe's competitiveness by reducing trade obstacles, simplifying regulations, and boosting digital integration. And that's the direction we need to take. Here in the Netherlands, we must develop the businesses, technologies, and the prosperity the rest of the world envies. And to do that, we need every bit of brainpower, creativity, and entrepreneurial spirit the Dutch people have to offer. But first and foremost, we need a louder voice, so that anyone not choosing growth is forced to explain why. Not just in The Hague, but across the country and across our continent. We need more voices, loud and clear, fighting with us for more room for entrepreneurship. And with that, for a stronger and safer Netherlands. In short, we need each other. And this is something we must all get involved in. And that is why I'm so glad that Robert, Lawrence, and James are here with us tonight. Lawrence and James, would you please join me here? Because you have built a movement looking for growth, and I just learned that they opened their first physical office yesterday, so maybe once more an applause. With no furniture, right?
No furniture yet.
No furniture yet, but there's a building, so that's very cool. And everything you're doing is very inspiring for me, for us. You have large groups of people fighting together for growth, for radical change for the better. And I say to everybody here, people, we need this also here in the Netherlands. We are not going to make it without just politics and lobbying alone. It's not going to work. Our voice for growth needs to be louder and more engaging. So you have built a movement, Looking for Growth, that is really inspiring. And I'm very happy that you are here to share your knowledge with us, your focus with us. So let me just thank you, shut my mouth, and listen to those guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is this, okay, cool. Hello. Thank you so much for that. That was actually just very refreshing to hear a politician talk about things and we just mostly agree. That's very nice. Hi, I'm, for those of you who don't know me, which probably most people in here, I'm Dr. Lawrence Newport. This is my brother, James Newport. We are co-founders. Also, Joe Reeve is one of our co-founders as well. He can't be here today, unfortunately, but we set up Looking for Growth, a political movement. We started it 6 months ago. It was the result of, in British politics, we have had multiple Conservative governments for about 14 years. The economy has been horrific. We had a new government come in promising radical change, and they did the exact same stuff, which you can imagine is incredibly frustrating. Given this frustration, me, my brother, and Joe, we discussed it and said, well, what are we going to do? I cannot take this anymore. This is frustrating beyond belief. We don't have to accept this. We shouldn't accept this. What can we do? So we did the sensible thing, and we just recorded a video on our sofa saying, we're going to start something. Come and join us in 4 weeks' time, please. We didn't think that would go anywhere. Within a day, we had 500 sign-ups. which then meant, because we had no money at all, we had to work out how the hell to get a building that size and a room that size. And within a week, 2 weeks, we had about 1,000 people signed up. We crammed about 400 people into a room about double the size of this, so it really was crammed. And I think the bar there was very surprised. They weren't quite aware what we were doing, and suddenly no one could move. So they've invited us back. This was only 6 months ago. We have gone from strength to strength. Looking for Growth is not a think tank. We're not interested in writing papers. We're interested in doing things. In British politics, there's been a lot of talking and not very much action. We are in very serious decline in Britain. We are in very serious stagnation. You're about £13 a week in real terms better off than you were in 2008. In Britain now, this is completely anemic. It is completely impossible. And the frustration levels are extremely high. That being said, Britain, Europe, we have incredible talent, incredible ability, and we can get out of this. It is indeed a choice that governments have made successively for about 20 years, actually a bit more. It is totally, in Britain, a possibility we can change things. And here I see today, talking about, I was reading through some of the policies and discussions, nuclear power stations. This was something which was impossible to talk about even a year or two ago politically, and to see a commitment to nuclear power stations is very, very galvanizing. In Britain, we have 2 nuclear power stations being built. They've taken 30 years. They are still not done, and they are the first and second most expensive nuclear power stations in the world. This is not because they're super good. It's because we have about 10,000 different planning rules and regulations. We built a road recently well, we haven't actually built the road, sorry. We have spent 1.2 billion on planning for a single road. 800 million went to consultants and lawyers. Sorry, any lawyers in the room, but I don't think that's very fair. We set up Looking for Growth out of this frustration and a belief that things can and must get better. It is also the case, of course, that as we all see, the international community is shifting very dramatically, and we need actual radical change incredibly quickly. It is very, honestly, brilliant to hear radical change at the top of an agenda. This is something which we desperately need. We can't do half measures. It's not going to work. We've tried half measures. I'm sure you have seen many half measures, and if you're anything like in our position, hearing about the airport, that would drive me insane. It is not something that we can accept or should accept. Looking for Growth, we launched about middle of December. We launched with an infrastructure and planning bill. We thought we're not going to write a think tank report. We're going to launch with a bill that tells the government how much planning regulation they can actually get rid of for nuclear power stations, overhead cables, AI data centers. We launched that with a big kind of viral movement. The government ended up adopting several of our policies in, a bit watered down, shall we say, and that's still an ongoing battle. But this was in the first few months of operation. Since then, we've opened up 16 chapters now, I believe. Yes, 16 chapters have just started up across the country. These are people in local towns and cities across the UK who want to help us build a movement. Because I'm sure, hearing the airport example, seeing any discussions about nuclear power, there's going to be lots of objections, lots of problems. And the other side of the argument is extremely coordinated. Very smart, has spent a lot of time and a lot of money building networks and trying to fight this at every single point. That hasn't happened on the other side of things. We do not have a very clear social movement. There are, indeed, it looks at least in the Netherlands like a political movement that might do it, but like a social political movement that actually pushes for these policies that will make a difference and improve people's lives, reduce the cost of living, reduce bills. This is something that we are extremely, extremely focused on. We have these 16 chapters to fight things locally, to push things locally, and to scare politicians so they realize we are always watching them. This is, it's an important part to make sure that growth isn't forgotten, isn't ignored, and that decline isn't the choice we keep making, which we have made for at least the last 20 years. We have big plans for expansion. We are going to make this as wide as possible because the problem is as wide as possible, and it is basically the most important problem we have because this improves all of our lives on net every single day. I'll pass over to my brother to talk a little bit more about chapters, but thank you very much, and please do come up and speak to me at the end if you're interested. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Try and avoid the conflict of two mics. Me and Lawrence, obviously brothers, as you maybe see from the facial features, but we dress very differently to try and distinguish one another. Lawrence is normally in a very colourful suit, I'd say, with flowers and things, so I normally take a more beige approach or bland approach. Obviously, I completely agree with everything Lawrence has said, but I'll take somewhat of a harder line that decline isn't just a choice, but I think it's the default. We can see it around us. We can see this lovely building. If it's not maintained, if there's not effort continuously put in, it will degrade over time. And we should expect the exact same thing of our institutions, of our economy, and of our society. Progress is only driven by people such as yourselves showing up and then investing your time and energy in delivering it. When we started LFG, as Lawrence has already said, we did as a reaction to the frustration and anger of what we were seeing, which was happening, which is a new government coming in and the same problems, the same systems failing. And this, we ultimately kind of set out for this movement as a reaction to that, and we just felt, well, we just set out and we thought, we can't deal with this in action anymore, we need to do something. We didn't set out with a strategy. The ex-civil servant and me got very uncomfortable with this. We just said, working with Lawrence, you have to deal with the kind of let's just do this thing and let's just work it out, which is a great strategy in itself. We launched our first event. We produced a radical pro-growth infrastructure bill that we believed would improve the country, and we just put it out into the public to see if we can garner support. And at our first event, Lawrence and Joe unexpectedly announced that we were going to run chapters across the country. And he came off stage and he said to me, don't worry, I think we're going to probably have 2-3 chapters set up within 6 months. Not loads of work, as we're all volunteers at this point. Whereas Lawrence already said, 6 months in, we've got 16 chapters started across the country. So it was one of the rare moments where Lawrence's optimism wasn't high enough. It's clear that if you put out the offer, people will take you up on it. And truthfully, these chapters have become a backbone of the movement. I've had the privilege of travelling around the UK, seeing many places I haven't seen before, shamefully. But I've gone to Oxford, I've gone to Brighton, I've gone to Milton Keynes, Manchester, and many other places to see these chapters launched and see the local growth and people wanting to drive change in the local area. What I personally love about these chapters more than anything is the fact that they're turning the frustration and anger you see, and they're turning it into action. They empower people who you often will speak to and may feel disempowered. They feel like the last 20 or so years, things have just been declining. They've not been able to do anything. And yet now they have an outlet. Now they have a purpose and a way to drive that forward. They have a way to put pressure on the local leaders and make them priorities of growth, make them realize the trade-offs they're making with the restrictions they're putting in, the blockers they're creating. So LFG is first and foremost a movement. Its power comes from the people showing up. And you have a fantastic opportunity here. This event in itself, the political backing and political desire you have is clear. You have also all showed up, and that's the first step. We want to try and help you to do that. We want to help you take the frustration and drive your optimism forward. And maybe also get an airport with some planes landing soon. That seems like #1 challenge to go. It's too much. Okay, we'll start somewhere else first, and we'll move up to the airport. We want to see LFG cross the channel. We think this problem is broader than just the UK. It spreads across Europe. We want to see Amsterdam to become the first chapter in Europe, and hopefully the first chapter in the Netherlands.
We found the guy to run it.
Yeah. Who was that? We found a lead already. Perfect. To do this, it needs investment of time and funds to grow as fast as possible, to deliver your impact quickly, and to fix the systematic issues that are holding growth back. If you want to make that investment, as that gentleman clearly does, and you want to lead that chapter, please do come speak to myself, Lawrence, or Jack, who's actually standing right next to that gentleman. That man's not a plant, I promise you. Come speak to us, and we will talk, and we'll set that up with you. We've got a system to drive that forward. The thing I'll end on is saying that, as I said at the start, I believe that the default is decline, but you all have a chance to change that. And all it requires is you to show up and to invest your time and energy, and we can do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. We're going to our next guest. Dilan already introduced him, so Robert, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hey everyone. I am going to start out with my slides, if they're going to load. But basically I have some good news and then I have some bad news. The good news is that every single thing you know right now will change. And the bad news is that every single thing you know right now will change. So this is the message that's coming from a startup founder, of course. I started my first company when I was 19 years old. And when that got acquired, I went to the US. Did a company that didn't do that well, and then did another company that didn't do well, spent some time at Google, ended up starting my first company, and we'll see if that does well. I think there's high hopes. There's absolutely high hopes. Oh, that's a lot of slides. Yeah, there we go. So, startups. I think you have to think about startups in the terms of a flywheel, in terms of the start of whatever it is that growth achieves. So you have to think about startups not in the cliche sense of like two, often guys, in an attic tinkering away. It can also be a spin-out. It could be a, academically or from a corporate. It could be a company that is, that is run in different types of ways, but they all start very small. Oftentimes we use the word scale-up in Dutch. I'm not going to use that word. A scale-up is just a successful startup. To me personally, the whole effect of having a startup is that it achieves something new and that it has exponential growth. So what it is not a mom and pop shop. It is not a consultant. It is not an agency. It is something that can, through technology, multiply itself indefinitely. And I think that that is exactly what we need. As a matter of fact, it is in our roots. Carrots are orange because we made them orange. That is something the Dutch did. We made them orange. And so we didn't really stop there. We made the microscope. We made Blu-ray. We made the CD. We did all these fantastical things. And to put it a little bit more into recent context, we do things from ASML to Etienne, from Booking to Backbase, from Crisp to Coolblue. And I can literally name every single letter in the alphabet and give you an example like that. So we are not doing badly. We are just missing the volume. It's really the volume that we're talking about. Why are we not kicking off that flywheel with more incredible young companies that spin out successful entrepreneurs that invest in the next generation of startup, or that breed talent that can truly understand what entrepreneurship is because they've worked at a startup and now they can apply it in different ways on a different level. How can we build that volume? I think because we have an opportunity, and the opportunity is essentially AI. The opportunity that we have in front of us is that machines somehow have taught themselves to learn faster time and time again. And we are currently at the precipice of that change with generative AI. Whether you like it or not, or whether you know or not, AI governs every single thing that you do in your life already. Who here knows what vibe coding is? Oh, no, oh, okay, that's great. Vibe coding is the act of programming without actually coding. It is asking an AI to do the hard bits for you, but then you give it direction. You give it substance. You tell it what to do. And before the summer is done, all of you will be vibe coding. I can 100% agree with you. The only thing is, it will not feel like programming. You will make software, or potentially even hardware in the future, do for you what you need it to do, and it will give you exponential power. You have all the opportunity here to be the Leonardo da Vinci of your time, and you need to do less stuff than Leonardo da Vinci had to do to achieve that. This is an incredible sort of new moment for you. But we have to do three things. First, we have to be more adaptive, and by that I mean taxes. To take one of specific example. So the stock options that we give to staff in startups, those are important because they feed into the flywheel. If we get people to share their wealth, not just on the founder, but on the employee, then they can go and invest that in the next generation of talent. That was impossible in the Netherlands until very recently, where in the spring budget, the voorjaarsnota, there was a change in the law that said startups can give their employees shares, but they do not have to pay any taxes over those shares until they are sold. And that is the key element here. This other thing that happened, which is fantastic, is that we, basically in that law set, we have to define what a startup is. The RVO will define, is this a startup or is it a local mom and pop shop? Is it a pizzeria? Is it a butcher shop? And if we have that indicator, that means that we can do more with that. For the first time ever, we have an indicator that says you're a startup, you're what we want. We want to have that flywheel, so we want to support you. And we're now doing it with a tax delay on shares, but we could do it in the future with all kinds of things. We could do it with certain types of grants that we feel are important. Instead of giving those to the big corporates, we're going to give those to the startups that actually need them. This is a huge opportunity. I think the main thing here to remember is that we enacted that law change in the Netherlands quite recently. There was momentum for it for years. I started a petition called vliegwiel.nl that helped at least entrepreneurs to say, hey, this is something that we want to change. But countless of people have been talking about this, and we made it happen. So policy change is not that much out of our reach. It is something that we can get together. And by the way, this also happened with the help of the VVD, with Claire's help, and I'm very grateful for that. So that's fantastic. Second item, we need to be able. We need to have the talent. And that is something that is not necessarily given right now. I'll give you one example. A friend of mine is a professor at a university, and she uses AI to review the homework. And then the student uses AI to make the homework. So what's the point of this? I think sincerely that currently we're having the same discussion about AI as that we're having with like graphical calculators, or even calculators back then. Oh, will it actually allow you to learn the craft if you're using AI to get there? I think students are already past that. They're already considering it an element, especially Gen Z and below, that this is a substantial element of how I exist, is using AI to my advantage. So we have to sort of adhere to that and maybe go back to a very Dutch word, which is ambacht, craft. It's kind of like your word for mind. We don't have a word for mind. You don't have a word for ambacht in its true essence. Because in its essence, it's about mentorship. It's about deep craftsmanship taught to each other in practice. And I think that with AI developing so much, not in years, but in days, that we literally have to reform our educational system to match. One of the cool things, how you can learn more about this, there's a website, aiplan.nl, that sets out a lot of this vision as well, of where do we need talent, how do we need talent to apply to AI, so check that out. Acceleration, and especially about investment. So I touched on the subject earlier that a successful entrepreneur will become an investor. And this is the best type of investment that you can make because it comes with experience. It comes with operational experience. So the main thing that we want to sort of grow here is that people with that have the ability to invest are also the people that have actually done the work. Because that's not just money, that's like educational experience, that's something you can actually use. And so I'm a member of an angel group, an angel investment group called Operator Exchange. There's 70 people in there that do just that. They are all so-called operators, they have the experience, and that is not the default. There's one story, I won't say who it is, but it was a Dutch entrepreneur. He had just, his company had gone public, and I was in the board of a startup with him. And I asked him, what are you going to do with all this money? And he was like, I'm going to open a hotel on Texel, because I love that island. I'm like, that's great, but like, are you investing? What are you doing for technology? You're from technology. I would love to see you in more boards. And he's like, well, maybe later. So that's the unfortunate thing that we have, is we don't have that flywheel from the investment part. And we need to do that at scale for us to solve that volume problem that I talked about earlier. Now, let's talk a little bit about change, my favorite subject. 2,500 years ago, there was a guy called Heraclitus. He was a pre-Socratic philosopher. And he talked about this thing called flux. Flux is when destruction and renewal hit each other. It is the center of change. It's difficult. It's something that most people don't actually like that much, and he didn't either. So he started writing about it. And basically, he came up with this sentence, pantare, which means everything flows. Every single thing around us is constantly changing, and you cannot step into the same river twice. You have to constantly be aware that the situation isn't like before. And I was thinking about like rivers and about currents, and I was like, windmills, that's, like that makes sense. We can harvest that change that we feel around us. We just have to pull it to the center. We have to really sort of make the systems to benefit from that change. AI is a huge opportunity. We have an amazing year ahead of us. All of you have such an opportunity here. I just can't even put it into words. But we need to be here to experience that, to support that change. And so when most entrepreneurs come out and say, hey, I'm going to leave the Netherlands, some actually do, some just threaten to leave. A company starting with the letter A and then the letters SML. They basically said, hey, we're going to leave, and we rallied to the cause. We thought we're going to keep them here, and it's great that that happened. That's fantastic that that happened. But now we need to do it unilaterally. How do we keep those companies here, but also when they're here, how do we make them part of the solution? And I can wholeheartedly say that when I went out and publicly said, I'm staying, tons and tons of other people said exactly the same thing. I would argue it's the default state for most entrepreneurs that are here. It's just the loud ones that get all the press. So I invite you together to take that opportunity that I just told you about, to think about these 3 things, and to email me if you need my help. My email address is on my website. Thank you so much.
Wow. In the Dutch we say, your glass is half full, right? Yeah, so thanks very much. I think it's really inspiring, and I'm glad that you will stay all here for the drinks. So please ask them everything you would like to ask them. So I will switch into Dutch for 2 minutes. Then we go back to English, and I will give you all the opportunity to ask everyone here the questions. Ik denk dat het goed is om stil te staan bij wat Robert net aangaf, wat we ook in Nederland op dit moment aan het doen zijn. Want het rapport dat we hebben gelanceerd, kiezen voor radicale groei, behelst natuurlijk elk bedrijf. En de valse tegenstelling die in politiek Den Haag vaak wordt geopperd, dat je of voor MKB bent of voor groot bedrijf, is onjuist. Om even heel technisch te zijn. Nederland is een heel klein land en wij denken graag in regio's en binnen die regio's in ecosystemen. En daar zijn heel veel lobbyisten voor op de been. Maar eigenlijk zijn wij één land, één groot ecosysteem. Als je praat met de grote techspelers, dan zien zij ons als één ecosysteem. En wij hebben MKB nodig om die grote multinationals hier te houden. We hebben grote multinationals nodig om te zorgen dat er werk is voor al die MKB-bedrijven. En dan hebben we start- en scale-ups. Want als wij de ambitie hebben dat we het innovatieve land van Europa willen worden, misschien zelfs mijn stiekeme persoonlijke hoop, start-up hoofdstad van Europa, dan hebben we deze vliegbedrijven nodig. En ik kom zelf uit de start-up hoek, dus wij waren net aan het lachen over het nieuwe kantoor van de jongens, dat daar nog geen meubilair is. Nou ja, je begint altijd op een doos en als je het dan goed doet, dan krijg je zo'n skippybal die start-ups zo leuk vinden om uiteindelijk op te zitten. Maar dit zijn de bedrijven die op eigen kracht en eigen initiatief grote maatschappelijke vraagstukken oplossen voor ons land. En te lang hebben we in Den Haag gedacht dat ze in het ene of het andere boekje vielen. Maar het goede nieuws is, we zijn op mede ons initiatief begonnen met de structurele debatten start- en scale-ups. Omdat we weten dat het en de lange loondoorbetaling bij ziekte behelst, en de inflexibele arbeidsovereenkomsten, en de fiscale voordelen die vaak alleen maar gelden voor MKB of groot bedrijf. Het is echt een stap naar voren. Medewerkersparticipatie, waar Robert net over begon. Dat je dus in staat bent om als founder je medewerkers mee te laten participeren. Gewoon simpelweg omdat je niet in staat bent om die salarissen van de SM's te betalen. Het is ontzettend belangrijk en wij staan daar te vaak alleen. Dus het is ook aan de VVD en ook ik ga er heel hard mijn best doen om iedereen ervan te overtuigen dat zo'n expertregeling niet van essentieel belang is voor de grote bedrijven. je houdt een ecosysteem bij elkaar. Ik heb vandaag een heel lang goed gesprek gehad met de tech-scene, die ook zelf aangaven, als die talenten eenmaal hier zijn, dan hoppen ze van Nike naar bol.com naar een Adyen. We hebben ze nodig. En de grote uitdaging is zelf de talenten gaan opleiden. Want ook hier kiezen Nederlanders nog onvoldoende voor de beroepen van de toekomst. Daar gaan we het niet over hebben vandaag. Ik wil jullie allemaal bedanken. Thank you all. I think it would be strange if there aren't a lot of questions. So please raise your hand if you would like to ask some of our guests a question. Yeah, well, the first hand, Daan. Oeh.
You're chapter master.
Aan wie? Ja. Ja. They're looking for growth bars.
Yeah, so shall I?
No, Dan.
No,
You're a politician. I don't give you the mic.
You know me too well. Thanks, guys, for coming over all the way here to Holland. My name is Dan Wijnands. I'm the group chairman of the local VVD party in the Amsterdam City Council. Amsterdam is the self-proclaimed degrowth capital of the world. Not our party, but the current parties in coalition. They're succeeding regretfully quite nicely in achieving this goal. Also with reference to Kate Raworth's donut economy. And they have this whole policy on implementing donut economy in Amsterdam. We have extensive debates on this. What would be your response to people proclaiming this donut economy? And please give me some kill all, tell all sentences that I can throw in their faces.
So, have you ever heard of it, or is this a
have heard
thing
of
we
it.
imagined in Amsterdam?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So should I stand up? Should I? Yeah.
Yeah, please.
So thanks for that. From our point of view, when we get into the weeds of different philosophies, we basically just cut through, and we're like, sorry, do you think your energy bill should be this high? Do you think the cost of living should be this high? Do you think we should have GDP per capita growth of, I don't know exactly in this country, I certainly know in ours it's not great. And what we're basically trying to do repeatedly is push the other people out of the same frame that they want to adopt over and over and over again, and just say, this isn't the point. People's lives are getting worse. You are standing in their way. Why are you still standing in their way? What is actually your reasons? What is your actual desire for these people's lives? Can you justify why we are in the current state we are and why we should continue in that way? Because that's your choice, that's your path. And so what I really would encourage on this kind of stuff is that, particularly, I mean, I think actually you reading through your material here, you have a lot more kind of detailed political analysis, maybe than in Britain as well, where it really, the situation is particularly dire. I think it is, if Amsterdam is indeed the decline capital, this is, we'll give you a run for your money, right? Like, you know, but like there is green shoots and there are opportunities here, and I think the best way is being able to bring it down to actual people's lives and justify why we should continue in decline and why we should continue on the same failed philosophies, same failed paths we tried for 20, 30, 40 years. We are in a terrible position and we just don't have to accept it anymore. That's what I would say.
Thank you very much. Next question. Yeah? To whom?
I have a question for Dilan. So, hi, my name is Florin. I teach communication science at the UvA, and I have a very simple question. Why do you choose radical? Why do you choose to use this word when it's a more polarized world and there is so much radicalization in the public speech? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I had this question before, so thank you for asking. And also, I think it's a part of inviting you to the discussion. You know, we are taking a stand here. We are very loud and also proud of it. And in our political context, as I mentioned, it's not about trying to be sad and say we're so alone in this and nobody wants to help us. These are the facts in the Netherlands. If you look at the political scenery, you will see that we are truly standing alone as VVD, which is mind-blowing for me because it's such an obvious thing that you are choosing for growth. And we were trying to figure out how do you put this in a in-your-face phrase, and this is it. So if it's asking people, you know, they get started thinking about it, maybe you have an opinion about it, but that's okay. So let's have the discussion about it. We want it to be very loud and clear in our stand, and that's the reason we chose for that word, knowing also that it might also sometimes have a different meaning, but I think this is a very appropriate moment for using it. And I see that the UK, 12 points.
Thanks, Dilan. I'll go into the crowd. Hallo.
Ik heb een vraag voor Dilan. Zijn we ook bereid om de consequenties te aanvaarden van radicale groei? En als ik even een kort voorbeeld noem, er is een nieuw fenomeen dat heet Zero Human Company. Dat is een bedrijf volledig gebouwd op AI waar helemaal niemand werkt. Ik heb gisteren 3 uur gespendeerd aan het bouwen van zo'n bedrijf. En in principe is de volledige strategievormingstraject en planvorming van executie loopt volledig autonoom. Nog geen producten, omdat ik vanavond hier ben, maar misschien morgenavond. Dat heeft natuurlijk consequenties als dat soort bedrijven gaan samenwerken, waar helemaal geen mensen werken, en impact op economische groei en je kunt je voorstellen werkloosheid. Dus zijn wij bereid, als we kiezen voor radicale groei, ook de consequenties te accepteren?
En mag ik je dan vragen, moet ik dan de consequentie in deze zien als dat je bedrijven gaat hebben zonder werknemers en je zegt dat kan dus ook betekenen dat daar werkgelegenheid ervan afgaat. Ik zal hem vanuit mijn context beantwoorden, maar misschien wil jij me aanvullen straks, Robert, want jij bent echt de expert over de toekomst hiervan. Maar ik ben en blijf een optimist. En wat ik denk is, en sowieso, als je net naar Robert luistert en waar de toekomst naartoe gaat en wat jij dus ook blijkbaar middenin zit en heel erg goed weet, dan denk ik dat wij vanuit de politiek ook juist moeten kijken hoe kan je dit faciliteren in plaats van tegenwerken. Dat is wat de politiek vaak doet bij verandering. Dat tegenwerken, omdat we dat heftig vinden. Het past niet in onze systeem, het past niet in onze basisbeginselen als partij, het past niet in wat we hadden bedacht. Maar dat is natuurlijk pure armoede. Het is juist mooi als je mee kunt gaan met de ontwikkeling en kunt kijken waar zijn daar dan de kansen. Dus ik denk dat als jij mij zou uitleggen wat jouw bedrijf doet, dat ik er helemaal niks van snap. Maar waarschijnlijk vind ik het wel heel gaaf dat je zoiets kunt ontwikkelen hier in ons land met de faciliteiten die je hebt. En als optimist zijnde geloof ik ook dat je in de ecosystemen waar Claire het over had, ook nieuwe banen en kansen creëert. Als het niet direct bij jou, dan is dat wellicht in de omgeving daarvan. Of juist omdat we zulke gave bedrijven hebben, dat je dat naar je toe trekt. En dat we denken, kijk eens, als dat hier kan, dan kunnen we ook meer dingen hier naartoe trekken. Robert, je mag ook zeggen dat wat ik zei nergens op sloeg, maar jij bent expert.
Nee, ik ben het er helemaal mee eens. Ik zit in een kantoorgebouw en dat heet de Hacker Building. Dat is een beetje intimiderend, maar hacker is ook een soort koosnaapje voor start-up oprichter. Dus dat moet je zomaar zien. En in die Hacker Building zitten dus met name allemaal programmeurs. Programmeurs zijn een soort kanarie in de kolenmijn. Dus die zien als eerste kansen meestal. Maar eigenlijk wat er nu gebeurt, dankzij dat vibe-coding wat ik net noemde, is dat hun baan helemaal verandert. Dus hiervoor waren ze bezig met eigenlijk code kloppen. Ze maakten ook architectuurbeslissingen. Ze waren aan het regisseren wat alles doet. Maar nu is het zo dat ze eigenlijk in het eerste keer in hun leven, dat ze niet meer die code noodzakelijk hoeven aan te raken, maar dat het regisseren, dat de baan is. Nou zou je misschien denken dat een programmeur dan zou zeggen, ja, dit is niet waar ik die CS-degree voor, mijn computer science degree voor heb gehaald. Balen, mijn baan bestaat niet meer. Het tegenovergestelde is waar. Iedere programmeur in dat gebouw ziet nu dat ze meer slagkracht hebben, dankzij die verandering. Dus wat doet iedere programmeur nu? Die is veel meer bezig met het regisseren van dit alles bij elkaar. En ik denk echt serieus dat dat het begin is van die nieuwe economie. Om een ander voorbeeld te noemen. Gaat een vrachtwagenchauffeur de vrachtwagen nog besturen als die vrachtwagen zichzelf kan rijden? In nu en 5 jaar is dat op een niveau dat waarschijnlijk meer een rol zou worden, waarbij je moet regisseren wat er gebeurt. Misschien wordt het meer een klantgerichte oplossing. Misschien moet het juist die schakel tussen het feit dat die vrachtwagen moet rijden, maar die vrachtwagen die moet ook iets afleveren aan een mens. En dan met die mensen wordt gepraat worden. En daar ligt denk ik de essentie hiervan. Het is niet dat er mensen geen baan meer hebben dankzij jouw hele slimme integraties. En trouwens, als je nog een investeerder nodig hebt, dan moeten we even praten. Maar dus het is juist die kans, denk ik, om jezelf opnieuw uit te vinden. En mijn hoop, maar ook eigenlijk wel mijn grote, wat ik nu zie van die kanarie in de kolenmijn, is dat je slagkracht geeft. En dat bedoelde ik ook te zeggen met het talent. We moeten dus talent opleiden die slagkracht pakt, die regisseurstoel pakt. Die niet gaat zeggen, oh, mijn specialisme is dood. Ja, ga ik wel een andere baan zoeken. Nee, ik zal je een ander voorbeeld geven. Een vriend van mij heeft net een pizzeria geopend. En ik weet niks over pizza's, maar ik weet wel iets over AI. Dus ik zei tegen hem van, hey, misschien moet je gewoon wat analyses doen met AI en zo. Vind je dat leuk? Ja, nee, is prima. Ik wil eigenlijk wel weten wat de inkoop is en welke pizza's ik dan zeg maar niet meer op het menu moet zetten. Dat soort dingen. Ja, en hij heeft gewoon een hele pizzeria gebouwd op die manier. Wat ik nooit zou kunnen. Want ik ben geen specialist met pizzeria's. Dus ik denk dat AI ook, dankzij iemands specialisme, dat je meer die regisseurrol kan pakken, gaat de hele economie veranderen. Dus ja, goed bezig.
Thanks. Gaan we deze kant op. Aan wie wil je de vraag stellen? Ik ga even met mijn gezicht in de camera.
Hi, yeah, my name is Tim and I'm an economist. So I love this. I think it's a fantastic initiative. But I'm also more a kind of Chicago-style free market kind of economist. And for us, like long-term growth is the holy grail. So I always wonder how, right? How are we going to do this? And the other question, if you really choose radically for growth, that means another course, right? So what are you going to do radically different to create growth?
That's a very good and large question. To whom?
Dilan, you?
Oh. Nou, ik denk dat... Kijk, het is natuurlijk een hele abstracte vraag. Het raakt heel erg veel. Maar het begint natuurlijk al bij de keuzes die we maken in Den Haag. En elke wet, elk beleidsstuk dat voor ligt, beantwoorden wij met deregulering. Ik denk dat de AI-act een van de allermooiste recente voorbeelden is. Dat is een act is voortgekomen vanuit angst in plaats van vanuit kansen. Ik was vorige week in Washington en in Silicon Valley. En als je dan de gesprekken voert, voor mij vanuit frustratie waarom sommige tech-startups daarheen verkassen, is het natuurlijk om het letterlijke dereguleren. Dus het is natuurlijk op heel veel facetten. Wat Daan Wijnands hier net aangaf, wij hebben een hele brede drang naar nivelleren. Groei vindt natuurlijk ook plaats op het niveau van een bedrijf of een individu. Dus of het nou gemeenten zijn, maar ook in Den Haag, waar je toch ook ziet dat met de rechtse partijen je verwacht dat die ruimte ook financieel, fiscaal en in regels wordt gegeven, het averechtse waar is. Dus er is in Nederland niet automatisch een meerderheid om dit te bewerkstelligen, maar het vraagt wel echt een nieuwe vorm van zelfbeheersing aan alle politici in Den Haag, maar ook op gemeentelijk niveau. Dus als je echt deze radicale ambitie wil realiseren, dan is zelfbeheersing voor politici nodig. Niet je stempel willen drukken door toch dat motietje in te dienen waar je het uiteindelijk weer mee inperkt, waar je die groei weer kleiner maakt. En dat op elke portefeuille, van sociale zaken tot aan economie, tot aan financiën, fiscaliteit, een minder grote overheid. En ik denk dat ik zo nog een half uur door kan wat ik met liefde doe bij de bar. Maar het is een groot en breed vraagstuk. En dat haakt ook aan op wat Dilan zei. Daarom hebben we gekozen voor het woord radicaal. In plaats van alleen groei. Ik hoop
Mag ik daar iets op aanvullen? Want ik denk dat het ook dus iets vraagt van heel concrete acties. Dat is het belangrijkste, heeft Claire al gezegd. Maar het vraagt dus ook iets van onze houding en cultuur in Nederland. Dat je dus gaaf vindt als iemand succesvol is. Maar ook snapt als je gewoon eerst 3 keer of 10 keer op je bek gaat. En dat we dan niet denken je hebt gefaald. Maar je bent op zoek naar waar zit het succes. En dat we ook met elkaar snappen dat Roberts succes voor ons allemaal betekent. Dat je daar trots op kunt zijn. Terwijl we eigenlijk met elkaar, best gek met de geschiedenis van Nederland, als je kijkt hoe we als klein landje altijd enorm groot zijn geweest op de wereld, omdat we de oplossingen verzinnen voor de problemen waar iedereen mee zit, het eigenlijk elkaar zo hebben aangeleerd dat het eigenlijk alleen maar oké is als ik je naar beneden trek. Dus dit vraagt ook om niet bang te zijn voor verandering, om trots te zijn op succes. En voor ons om in Den Haag steeds uit te leggen dat ondernemers, klein of groot, net beginnend of generaties bezig, niet van die Dagobert Duck zijn die op een zak met geld zitten en scheid hebben aan de samenleving. Maar juist dankzij hen hebben we de banen, zij investeren, zij doen de vrijwilligerswerk, zij subsidiëren, zij zorgen dat de voetbalclub in de wijk overeind blijft. En dit zijn allemaal open deuren voor deze zaal, dat weet ik, anders was u hier niet. Maar dit is wel onze dagelijkse strijd. En dat wat eronder ligt, een beetje bijna wantrouwen en afgunst, maakt wat er continu elke dag gebeurt, waar Claire het net over had. En daarom is het ook zo belangrijk dat we dit met elkaar uitstralen. Want wij gaan het nooit in Den Haag daar geregeld krijgen als we niet een bredere beweging hebben, zoals ze ook in de UK hebben, dat we laten zien, dit is juist waar je trots op moet zijn en er hoort vallen en opstaan bij en dan staan we nog steeds achter je. Ja, en daar zijn we nog heel ver van op dit moment in Nederland.
Exact. Wim, his name is Wim.
I'll try to do it in English. I love the concept of AI and using it more to improve our economic strength. It also requires a lot of energy. I heard you guys talk about in the UK you are building nuclear power plants that are already very old. And in the Netherlands, Silvio's here. He's putting up a fight to get those nuclear power plants also here. But what can we do to also inspire people here to embrace nuclear energy? What do you think?
And
the model from
and the looking for growth guys.
I think one of the chief ways that we've been talking about it is like trying to take, it was kind of what I was talking about a little bit earlier as well, try to take all the abstract stuff and make it personal and physical and real, which is like all the stuff that politicians want to talk about is often quite divorced from what people actually feel every day. And that is, do you want your energy bills cheaper? Do you want it more reliable? Do you want us to rely on Chinese and Russian and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? No, right? People don't want that. In Britain, we were in a very, very bad position just last year. I think we had the worst industrial energy prices in the world. We have been unable to build nuclear power, as you say, for about 30 years. They're still in the pipeline. It's still taking forever. It's still costing so much money. It's unbelievable. But to get people on side of nuclear power, I think it is simply about stating it is clean and it is something that will give you stable power that will reduce your energy bills. There are all kinds of other minutiae arguments, but the real thing I think to keep hammering home is we need energy security. You do not want to ruin your country by chucking out as many fossil fuels as you possibly can. Like, there's a place for it, there's time for it, there's all these other things. But the long-term trajectory of humanity will be towards nuclear power, it'll be towards fusion power, it'll be towards all these kinds of things. Given that, it is about making it very, very clear that we need to embrace the future. There were some terrible decisions made about the 70s where this all, and the Greens own this. They are why we live in a world that's not pro-nuclear power. And being able to say directly to people, this is a choice for stable and cheap power. If you disagree, give me something else, because I'm in the market for them. And often the response is, well, I'm sure we'll work it out, which to voters doesn't fly, and to politicians is something you can really use to pressure them and to say to them, you have to commit, you have to make a sensible decision, what does that actually look like? Thank you.
We have time for one last question. The lady in the front.
Hi, so I'm asking a question actually as a, let's say, loyal VVD voter. I'm on the board, but also as a daughter of an entrepreneur who have growing businesses here in Amsterdam. And what we notice is, and of course, when we're talking about radical choice and growth and economic growth, it's really attractive and sexy to talk about startups and AIs. However, the foundation of most of the businesses are small family businesses, or like what we read in the news that restaurants are not going to exist in the next 10 years. But also bigger companies such as ABN AMRO, etc., they struggle with just finding people. So it's people on a very low level, but also highly talented people. And in today's political economy, we're struggling with, we're changing our tax laws, for example. We're not able to attract that talent. So what's the future of the Netherlands if we look at all of this talent and maybe the lack of it, or lack of people to enforce this economy?
Yeah. I think a very good question.
So first of all those businesses rely on startups, every single one. How do they do their bookkeeping? How do they do their HR? Marketing. So there is an infusion that needs to happen in that layer that also comes from startups. But your question was specifically about talent. To me, there are a few choices that we've made to sort of not support talent to the degree that they can flourish in these businesses. I found that every single time that I visit local universities or high schools, which is weird because I'm a dropout, so just to give you that context. Every time I visit, there is not necessarily that connection with entrepreneurship. And it is that sort of entrepreneurship that you need, not just to start businesses, but to join businesses, and that grows businesses. So the best, by far the best I've seen so far is the minor entrepreneurship here in Amsterdam that is definitely educating people to flow in businesses, not necessarily to start their own, but to be expansive inside of those businesses, to take ownership, to have a certain type of like scrappiness, right? That you can deal with the unexpected. And those are not qualities that we have defined traditionally to be part of our educational system. As a matter of fact, our educational system is set up to prevent scrappiness, because we're going to teach you everything. And then you can do anything. And any situation that you will arrive at on the work floor, you'll have dealt with before. But what we actually need to do is we need to sort of, work in that flux that I mentioned before. So how do we get talent to sort of accept that change? Because every single business you just mentioned, whether it's corporates, the ABN AMROs, or whether it's the mom and pop shop, they're going to deal with this change as our whole society changes. And so individuals inside of that need to have the entrepreneurship, or at least the ownership, to feel part of that. That's also why I'm so passionate about employee stock options. Because I feel that if you own something, then you're willing to risk it all to sort of get somewhere. And luckily, a lot of that has been fixed now, to a degree that I truly think that we can sort of build a talent pool that is more reflective of the current realities. And obviously it's hard to say, well, if you're building a pizzeria, what kind of talent do you need versus a tech startup, right? Those are different things. But I think what you do need is someone that can roll through that change, be scrappy, really sink their teeth into something. And I worry sometimes about the talent pool that we're educating towards that, but luckily anyone younger than me seems to be completely more smarter about the use of AI than I am. So there's hope for this new generation yet, I believe.
Thanks, Robert. That was the last question, unfortunately, but we will join the bar. So if you have any questions left, please join us. I will give the last word to Dilan for a wrap-up.
Thank you. Yeah, I will keep that short because I think that thanks to James, Lawrence, and Robert, everybody is truly, hopefully, inspired, and the energy you give to the floor is very clear. And I was listening to you, and it goes a lot further than your experience and your knowledge. So thank you for sharing that. But your passion for this subject and your anger, when you're talking about, just quit talking about the abstracts and ask the people, is your life okay? Am I working in the correct manner for you? What the direct question of a politician should be, and the focus should be, and it's not. So I think that your passion and your anger is very, well, I like that, I love that. And my motto in politics is get involved, bemoei je ermee. Get involved, well, you're doing that. I am confident that your first European chapter will open in Amsterdam. I am confident that somebody here in this room right now will get involved and will make sure that we have also the best chapter in the world. That's what we do in Amsterdam. Yeah, in the world, unless the left parties get involved, but we don't need them here. So I hope that when you join the bar, the Amsterdam chapter will join you as well, and we get that started. And thank you, everybody, for your attention, for your time. And I hope that this was the start evening, the start moment, to also have this movement in the Netherlands, and we make sure that our voice is loud and clear, and we are working for growth. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening. Dank je wel. Jullie bedankt.